politics.
We're continuing our coverage now of the 2021 legislative session with a look at issues impacting local municipalities. Cameron Dale with the Utah League of Cities and Towns joining us now. Cameron, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with a broad look at local authority. Do you feel like it is being attacked this legislative session?
I think it's important for us to have a mutual understanding of what it means to be a mayor and a council member. We have 249 cities and towns in this great state, 1,380 mayors and council members who've been elected to make decisions that impact their neighborhoods. They're elected to make decisions about their communities. That's everything from public safety to how land is used, how water is delivered, how the garbage is taken away. All of that is what we mean when we talk about local authority. So from a League of Cities and Towns perspective, as one who represents cities at the Capitol, we're constantly preaching the term respect. We want the legislature to respect the role that local governments play, and we want to respect the role the state plays. And there are times we have conflicts, and we certainly have conflicts this session.
Okay, so you've been in this position for a few years. It's not your
Correct.
First session. How would you compare this one to years past from that issue of local authority?
Sure, there are always ups and downs. This year we have some really high-profile conflicts. And our mayors and our council members are trying to work together with legislators and state leaders to find that space where we can focus on the outcomes that matter to our collective constituents. But certainly this year we have some high-profile conflicts, no doubt.
And things are different this year. I mean, just straight up, it's not the same. So are you able to still get the access you need to lawmakers and be able to do what you think you need to on behalf of your clients?
I think lawmakers are doing their best under very difficult circumstances. And it's frankly the same challenges that mayors and council members have. All elected officials want to hear from the general public. They want to hear from their constituents, and COVID has complicated that. Our mayors and council members are meeting with legislators, and legislators and the governor are meeting with mayors and council members. But we do have some fundamental disagreements about how to proceed on some important issues.
Okay, let's get into some of those. Let's start with housing options. There's a bill that would make it easier for a homeowner to put a mother-in-law apartment in their home. At this point, the way it sits right now as of recording, you're opposed to that. Why? Or you have issues with it, I should say.
Correct. Utah is facing a major housing challenge. We need additional housing units to accommodate the amount of new Utahns that we are experiencing now and projecting in the years to come. Mother-in-law apartments, accessory dwelling units, those are very important and a part of the overall solution around housing. The key question for us is really less about the mother-in-law apartment per se and more about who should be making the decisions about neighborhoods. Should it be the mayors and council members who you can access at City Hall, or should it be state lawmakers on Capitol Hill? And where's that right balance of the general state policy and the local policy and the local implementation? In fact, over 60 cities in recent years have acted to authorize more mother-in-law apartments. The legislation as currently drafted goes far beyond that, and again, we're in major negotiations about that right now.
Okay, Representative Ward, I have not had the opportunity to talk to him specifically about this bill, but I would take the assumption that he's running it because he feels like it's not being done on the local level. So with that in mind, and you already mentioned the crisis we face here in the state of Utah, the next generation, our children, it's scary when you take a look at housing and availability and the prices even here in the state of Utah. So what is being done by our local mayors and our city councils to make sure they are bringing solutions to that problem?
I hear you on the housing challenge. We have a young family, and it's my generation and the next generations that are really feeling the squeeze in the housing market. Cities are stepping up to the plate though. In fact, in 2020, local governments permitted more housing units, over 30,000, than any time in state history. So that was a state record. Over the last couple of years, local governments have been updating what's known as their moderate income housing plans. That's part of their overall planning in their communities. We're also partnering across the region and with the state of Utah on transportation investment to try to maximize where we build housing so that it's close to roads and it's close to transit. So all of these planning efforts are happening. Cities do not have ability to impact the labor shortage that we're facing in the state, or how expensive materials are, even how expensive land is. But in those areas of planning, we think cities are stepping up to the plate.
Okay, let's move on to another hot topic, and that would be billboards. Talk to us about what's on the table and what concerns you have there.
Absolutely. Under current law, the state legislature has granted certain rights to outdoor advertisers or billboards. And right now we're in this dispute because there's a bill that would allow for essentially the upgrade of all normal billboards to digital billboards anywhere. So it doesn't matter if that's on a road that cuts through your city or on the freeway. It would allow for the upgrade from a normal paper billboard to a digital billboard. And that is concerning because those types of decisions should not be made at the state level. They should be made at the local level, taking into account the impact on the neighborhood, taking into account the hours of operation, and that in certain areas of the city they may allow lit signs, but in other parts of the city they may not allow digital signs. So we shouldn't have a state mandate that should allow for an upgrade to digital signs everywhere. So again, perfect example of what should the state role be, what should the local role be, and how can the state respect the local role as we plan our communities.
And as far as that specific bill is concerned, where do you stand on it right now as it's written?
As it's currently written, we're opposed. There's still 3-ish weeks left in the legislative session, so a lot can happen between now and March 5th.
Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left, Cameron. Let's get into infrastructure, always a big issue for local municipalities. What's happening this legislative session in regards to infrastructure?
Really, the big takeaway on infrastructure is that infrastructure is not free, but infrastructure is necessary in order to ensure the quality of life of Utahns today and tomorrow. There's a fantastic partnership opportunity between the state government, the business community, and local governments in laying out infrastructure. And that infrastructure is everything from roads to transit, from water to broadband. All of these are on the table right now, and again, great opportunities for partnership to make sure we have that backbone of infrastructure in place so that we can grow. Governor Cox, who, by the way, is the first mayor turned governor since 1948, he understands the vital role that local governments play in infrastructure and the role the state can play. He often says that density or infrastructure should precede density and not the other way around. You get the infrastructure right, you can then mitigate a lot of the challenges that come from population growth and still preserve quality of life.
We have about a minute left, but I want to hear more on this from you. What is the right relationship between a city and the state when it comes to infrastructure, from your point of view?
Both the state of Utah and local government spend millions of dollars from our collective constituents investing in infrastructure. From a state perspective, those are often your big projects. From your local perspective, we connect properties and we connect communities. So part of the partnership there is making sure that where the state is investing money, the local plans are in place. We have an obligation at the local government level to make sure our plans will maximize the investment from the state. When it comes to transit, when it comes to broadband, when it comes to water, we all have a role to play because infrastructure is not free, but it's necessary for the future of our great state.
All right, the government that is closest to you is the one that impacts you the most. Cameron, you always have a spot to come and talk about these important issues here on our show. Thanks for being here.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Stay with us, we'll have more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.